Welcome to the secondary part of winter 2022, now in summer 2023 issue of Peer to Peer. My name is Beth Ann Stubing. I'm the Director of Publications and Press, and today I am thrilled, honestly, to be sitting down with a group of 5 amazing women as we talk through women who lead, innovation, and so much more. I am joined by hosts Catherine Monte and Jim Kato, and a group of 3 amazing other women. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you so much, Beth Ann. Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Monte. I'm the Chief Knowledge and Innovation Officer at Fox Rothschild in Philadelphia. And today we have a panel of 3 women, as Beth Ann said, leaders in the library KM space, who are today going to be sharing some personal stories around their career experience and their leadership journey. So I'll pass it off to Jima, who will give a quick introduction and kick us off with our first question. Jima.
Thanks, Catherine. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jim Kato. I'm the Director of Knowledge Management and Innovation at Gibson, Dunn Crutcher. And I wanted to start today's podcast off by having each of our panelists introduce themselves. So Kate, how about we start with you?
Hi, my name is Kate Stockert, and I am the Manager of Reference and Research Services at K&L Gates, and I am based out of Seattle.
Thank you, Kate. Deanna?
Hi, I'm Deanna Carr. I'm the Manager of Research Technology at Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman, and I am located in the DC office.
Thank you. And last but not least, Meg?
Hi, I'm Meg Kribble, and I'm the Research and Knowledge Manager for the Boston office of Skadden Arps.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us. I wanted to start with some background and personal questions that we'll direct to each of you. And let's start. How would your friends describe you or your coworkers in 3 words or adjectives? Perhaps we start with Kate.
Sure. This is a bit of a hard one without sounding like a humble brag. So I think it's a little easier if I look at it from the perspective of how I want people to know and remember me. And when it comes to that, I aim to be compassionate and kind, dedicated and reliable to where, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And last, strive to be resilient to change and unexpected twists and turns in the past, because we see a lot of those in the economy today.
Excellent. And Deanna, how about you?
So the 3 words that are typically used to describe me by my coworkers would be organized, helps me to remain flexible and able to move from project to project efficiently, creative, I think outside the box for solutions, and reliable. People know that they can count on me to get the work done.
Oh, those are all great adjectives. May, how about you?
So my 3 are calm. I tend to do well, or project at least the image of doing well and not freaking out under pressure. Creative. I think we all have a little bit of an artsy side, and I enjoy the times when that can come out at work. And organized. I like things in their place, and I have lots of systems, and usually it works well.
Well, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. This is Catherine. And I'm going to ask you a question. When you were a little younger, when you were growing up, did you have a particular, career in mind? And did you actually accomplish that in any way? So I'll start with Kate again, if you can just tell us your personal story about that.
Sure. Well, I wanted to be a veterinarian for a long time, but I am quite squeamish around blood, so that turned out not to be a good option for me. But I love where I'm at now, at the center of where it's all happening, keeper and disseminator of knowledge, building bridges to connect information and ideas, and helping those I work with form more complete pictures of topics and issues.
Yeah, I think triaging is something we all have to deal with, and that's a great skill that you brought forward. Deanna, how about your personal story? Can you tell us a little bit about what you thought of when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, I had no idea. I have so many interests, so many loves of learning and everything. I, played soccer. I wanted to be a pro soccer player or a photographer, maybe a book editor. So it was actually really hard for me to decide, It's never really had much of an ambition to have anything specifically. I just wanted to be able to do it all. And I feel like the position that I'm in now actually really fits that well, because it allows me to go into any of my interests and develop those further and find other interests to then develop further. So in that sense, yes, I have accomplished what I wanted as a kid, is just to keep developing my interests and keep plugging away at them.
Multidisciplinary interests and approach, which is great. Great. And Kate, how about you? Oh, I'm sorry, Meg.
So most of my role models for women's careers growing up were nurses and teachers. And like Kate, I am squeamish. So I thought I would be a teacher, presumably of a classroom full of children. But I did end up accomplishing this because I do teach regularly. I spent 12 years in academic law libraries where I taught a legal research module every year as part of the LRW courses. And now that I'm at the firm, I teach firm-wide webinars. And of course, I teach attorneys and legal assistants one-on-one very frequently when they're working on their research or technology troubleshooting.
I love how all three of you sort of brought it together and tied all those loose ends together. And that's a great analogy. Thanks, Meg. Well, over to you, Jima, for our next question.
Yeah, so our next question is going to focus a little bit more on your careers. And I thought I'd direct this one to Kate. Have you had any mentors throughout your career or strong influences in your life, and maybe how they've made an impact or contributed to your success?
Yes, I've been very lucky in that regard. I've had three truly wonderful bosses at my three professional places of employment. Each has just been incredibly patient as I learn and grow. They offer a sounding board for ideas and a deep reservoir of knowledge on how to approach and tackle, challenging issues that come my way. And more than anything, each of them is approachable and has an open door policy. But on a more personal level, my parents have been wonderful role models. My father included me in a great deal of his business presentations and professional industry events over the years. So from a young age, I could see how the professional world looks and learn the mechanics of it. And my father is probably the greatest salesperson I know. He could sell ice in the middle of winter in Alaska. And having that sales perspective is immensely valuable in life. I found that sales perspective combined with a passion for one's ideas makes for success in pitching ideas, getting approval, getting folks excited to join in and work on a topic. Of course, I want to acknowledge the privilege that comes with getting to see my father in action, as I know a lot of folks don't have that kind of insight at a young age and access to the professional world, which is, of course, why the many professional associations that we have here in the United States are special and unique and a wonderful tool for young professionals. And it's also why us more seasoned professionals should do all that we can to mentor and include students and young people in our networking and professional association events. When there are opportunities to include, we should be including, and so that everyone can get insight into the professional world and what kinds of career opportunities might be available.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and having your father as an influence, what a great experience that is, and being able to translate into your career. And you're right. I think the sales, sort of that skill is invaluable no matter what position you're in. So that's great. So Catherine, I think you have the next question teed up.
Yes, and this question is going to be directed to Meg. I was really intrigued by some of our former conversations and your responses to this question, and I think it's a great personal, insightful story. So could you describe one of your biggest obstacles in life and how you overcame it? And again, what you learned from that, Meg.
Sure. So the concept of being a first-generation college student might have been around back when I was starting college, but I don't know. I'm not sure. So if it was around, it wasn't such that I was able to realize that, in fact, I was one. And my first 2 years, I went to a local community college, and that was a really great experience. But then I transferred to a four-year school to finish up, and it was a large state school, and I just flailed. I didn't know how to ask for advice. I didn't know who to go to for advice. I didn't know what to do with office hours. Basically, a lot of sort of I didn't know what I didn't know looking back. I can't say that there was a specific thing that helped me overcome it, because it was really just those last 2 years that were the hard part. But I did just keep going and getting through it, learning from jobs. I had worked retail jobs in high school and college as well. And I think I learned a lot from those. And just kept going, I guess, is my overcoming part.
Well, I think persistence, and even in the retail jobs, I think dealing with people and dealing on the spot with potentially stressful situations or difficult people, I think is actually a really translatable skill. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And over to Jima for the next question.
Thank you. This one's for Deanna. So I know throughout people's careers in life, they have epiphanies, events that happen that really shape who they are. So Deanna, can you describe what your biggest epiphany is and kind of how it made you who you are today?
Certainly. So I was an English major in undergrad, and we would get papers back and they would just be bleeding with red ink, and it was always heart-wrenching. And because writing or anything creative, it feels like you're putting a part of yourself on paper, and to have somebody critique it so thoroughly is just, it's always tough. So, when I was at college, no paper went unscathed. And it took me a while to realize that my teachers weren't criticizing me personally or telling me that my writing or my ideas were terrible, but really what they were doing was challenging me to do better, to be better. And so I really learned from them how to view criticism as from an editor. It's just meant to be constructive and to help you improve your skills, and that no one's perfect, but with practice, you can improve.
Yeah, just learning that, especially in college, that's a great thing to pick up, because I think it takes some people never understand that or come to that realization, and it's hard for them to take critique, which is really what it is. But so often that just makes you a better person when you hear how you can improve upon yourself. It's not a jab at you, but to how you can improve. So that's great. And Catherine, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So we're going to change the focus a little bit now, and I'd like to ask each of you a question around a leadership theme. And I'll ask Kate, you first, just to talk about, have you found it challenging to be a woman leader in your position or your role as a librarian? And if so, how? And if not, that's fine too. Just curious to get everyone's personal take on this. So Kate, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I am very fortunate to have really incredible female leaders in my firm who lead our practice groups and just are so inspiring to me and help show the way. And I've had the same in my library. So that's been an incredible gift. It is a little uncomfortable sometimes being on the younger side and managing people who might be on either side of the age range. So, what I've really focused on is just humility and knowing my own limitations and capabilities, that I can't possibly know everything or solve every problem, and that's okay. And it's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that, but let's work together and find out. And I have a really great HR team that has supported me and helped me navigate challenging situations, and same with supportive leaders in the library. And, we work in teams with access to a lot of different perspectives, ideas, experiences, skills for this exact reason. And so it's just crucial. I've learned to be a very good listener, to be open-minded, ask open-ended questions, to not jump to conclusions or make assumptions about what anyone's thinking or feeling, but to also really give space for people to express their feelings and issues, and to express a genuine interest in resolving problems. And that seems to have served me well so far, hopefully.
That's great. Some good nuggets in there for sure. And it's good to know that you have that support as well. Deanna, how about you? Do you find it challenging to be a woman leader? And can you talk to us about your experience?
Sure. In my experience, no, it hasn't been that challenging, but I second everything that Kate said. I've had great support, and I'm basically following the wake of some amazing women who have just trailblazed through. Really, the biggest issue I find is that there are some people who are condescending when they talk to you, but it seems like it's more just who they are rather than anything to do with me or my gender or even my age. I mean, I am younger than than most people around, so that sometimes adds a little bit of an issue. But
good. I'm glad to hear that as well. So Meg, if you can talk to us as well about your experience, and is it the same? Is it different in terms of, again, being a woman leader?
I think it's been largely the same. I feel like I've gotten enough feedback over the years, and particularly in my current position, that my skills are respected and valued very highly. And that doesn't have anything to do with my gender. I'm aware that law librarianship is a feminized profession. There are more women than men. And so, there's that issue. But in my day-to-day work, it hasn't been any sort of impediment.
And you're right. That's an interesting factoid about women in the library profession, which is a good point to make as well. So thank you all. Well, over to Jima for the next question.
Right. Well, we're going to stick with the leadership theme. And after hearing a little bit about your mentors and just, as you as a leader in your position, what qualities do you think make a good leader? And I'm going to throw it to Kate first. Keep it in the same order.
Sure. I've kind of touched upon this a little bit in my last answer, but definitely, humility and knowing your limitations and capabilities, having an open door and an even-keeled perspective, a willingness to listen to and take in ideas from lots of different folks, give everyone space to contribute, and working on building consensus, I think, is important too. Sometimes you just have to call the shot because it's you have a limited time frame to make a decision, or it's just clear based off of your firm's guidelines or whatnot that a certain direction one has to go in. But overall, I think giving people an opportunity to provide feedback and feeling like they're a part of decision making is really important.
Yeah, those are all great qualities. Deanna, how about you? What do you think makes a good leader?
So I've been thinking about this a lot as I became a manager and trying to figure out what kind of manager I want to be and what kind of manager is needed for my team. And I've been thinking, you're only a leader if you have followers. So why do people follow you? And there's so much advice out there. And we could probably spend 20 plus minutes just throwing out different words about qualities and skills like empathy and adaptability and open-mindedness. But I think that none of those really mean much if you lack consistency. So being consistent and effective in your communication, being consistently supportive and encouraging, both in good times and in tough times. Leadership is really a set of skills, and they should be continuously practiced and honed and developed. So I don't think there's really like a quick tidbit answer. It's an ongoing process of continuing to become more and to inspire others to become more as well.
That's great insight into what makes a good leader, because it's true, consistency definitely lends a hand in making sure that all those other qualities follow right every time that you make a decision or ask your team to do something. Meg, how about you? What do you think makes a good leader?
So I feel like my second parts of this answer could change a little bit day to day, but I think the first quality that I value in leadership is listening, being willing to take input, take criticism, take praise sometimes. Hopefully that's not too rare. And then also the ability to change one's mind with new information or new data. If you're just dead set on doing what you've decided to do, regardless of what input you get from people, that's not a good way to lead. And then keeping it to sort of a 3 threefold thing, at least for now. I would add communication, being clear, being consistent, like Deanna said, also able to inspire people, maybe share a vision, just using those communication skills in lots of different ways to inspire the consensus, put yourself out there.
Yeah, those are all great qualities. I agree. I think you guys all brought really great aspects to what a good leader is, and you're probably all portraying them right now in your careers as we speak. So I'll turn over to the next question to Catherine.
Thank you. So we have a few sort of wrap-up questions. We wanted to sort of circle back on the last part of this podcast with some, we call them last takes. So my question for each of you is around, what would you do differently if you had a chance? Again, words of wisdom, lessons learned, anything along those lines. And again, we'll keep the order and start with Kate.
This is a tough question, as all of the knowledge and experiences and skills that we attain over life are hard-earned. And every stumble leads to growth and wisdom building. So, it's like, would I take back any of my mistakes? And, sure, in a perfect world, I would never make mistakes. But I also know that those mistakes are where I learned the most, and that's a part of life. It's like earning your scars and your stripes. But the words of wisdom that have stuck with me and served me well are from my first boss at Knowledge Mosaic. And she gave me a piece of advice that stuck with me to this day, which is, when you're presenting anyone with a problem, always come to the table with a solution or two or three. Even if the solutions you've devised aren't great, it shows that you're focused on solving the problem rather than blaming or complaining, and that you've spent time thinking about the issue and are genuinely committed to fixing it. And I have followed that advice throughout my life, and it has served me well and really has been focused on the future and forward thinking and problem solving. And so I think it's a great way to reorient, challenges that come our way.
I've heard similar advice in the past myself, but I love how you added that it shows that you're committed to fixing it. I think that's really a great way of putting it. So thank you for that. Deanna, how about you? Again, anything you would do differently, or any words of wisdom that you want to bring to the table here?
Well, like Kate, I wouldn't do anything differently, because I feel like you learn more from failure than you do from success. So I really try to focus on what I learned and how I can handle something different in the future rather than trying to rewrite the past. As for words of wisdom, the best I have is everyone has some level of negative self-talk, and learning to talk to yourself as if you're a younger version of yourself is incredibly important, because you'd never yell at a toddler learning to walk that she'd fail. Like, if she fell, that she failed. You'd encourage her to get up and try again, even if she needs to take a few minutes and cry a little bit about it. You should always talk to yourself that way, because if you're growing and challenging yourself, you're always going to be that toddler in some aspect of your life learning to walk. And you should never stop challenging yourself, and always strive to reframe your thinking, because imposter syndrome really is you just recognizing that you don't know everything and that you're judging yourself as lacking. So instead, try to view it more as you have self-awareness of your lack of understanding, and then challenging yourself to be curious and to learn more about what you don't know. And these are things that I try to incorporate with myself and have to remind myself constantly.
I really like how you weaved a lot of those things together, the learning more from the failures, and then the negative self-talk, and then that inner dialogue that you have. And I think the imposter syndrome piece, like you weaved in a lot right there. And all of them, I do think you might find, maybe you don't find this as true, but I find that there is a little bit more of that on women leaders' side, that imposter syndrome and a little bit of that negative self-talk, and the importance of having that inner dialogue with yourself and reminding yourself. So I think that's really powerful. So thank you so much. Well, we're gonna close this particular question with Meg. And again, let us know if you think you would do something differently if you had a chance. And if not, that's great. But words of wisdom that you can pass on.
I am not going to buck the trend here. I also would not do anything differently because I've seen Back to the Future, and I would be too afraid that doing one thing differently in the past might wipe out things in my life that I do not want to give up. So I'm not going to risk that. But as far as words of wisdom related to this, one thing I've really taken to heart over the last 10 to 15 years is this concept that we're more likely to regret the things that we don't do than the things that we do. So I've applied that in different ways, from taking time to visit family when otherwise I might skip a trip, or taking a job in a different section of the legal industry. Yes, and I have no regrets about those two things.
I also like how you framed that about, and I agree, I espouse that vision myself. I've trying to commit to doing something, doing more things that I normally wouldn't do. And I think that that's really true. I think that's a great way forward. Okay, over to you, Jima, with our last question.
So, sticking with sort of the last takes and looking forward, to the end of this year. My gosh, it's already, almost halfway through. And next year, what are you planning to do in the coming year? Any plans? I'll take it with Kate first.
Well, I've been working on developing uniform and consistent best practices and policies for my team to build confidence in the work they do and to give them the tools for autonomy and problem solving. So I plan to continue on that path. In the past few years, we've developed best practices for managing one's workflow and workload. And earlier this year, offered a communications best practices training. And so we'll just kind of continue to develop resources and trainings in that vein. I found that clarifying expectations and being as explicit as possible in doing so is necessary for team members to have confidence in their roles and to do their work with autonomy and confidence and, their decision making. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, setting up the best practices, that harkens back, I think, to it was Deanna's comment about being consistent as a leader and setting those out. So that's great. How about Deanna? What are you planning on doing in the coming year?
Oh, a good portion of my time will be spent learning all about generative AI and how that affects law firms. That'll be a big push this year. And especially as a manager of research technology, I have to look into things like prompt engineering and how librarians can shift their focus into that field a little bit more, and, teaching attorneys and other staff members about being critical with AI, especially if you can't see what they're pulling information from. So a lot of digital literacy along with that. So that's going to be the main focus, the biggest focus of my year. But I do want to try to become more involved in some associations and work within those. And then I have a new team member, so be training him to take on a lot of jobs and stuff, so that way I can then move on to big picture things.
Wow, yeah, you've got your cut out for you with the whole generative AI. It's every day there's a new company out there, a new technology. Our current vendors are all implementing it, so it's a lot to keep up on. So I wish you all the best of luck in your coming year. Meg, how about with you? What do you have coming up?
Well, I feel like I've actually just finished two big things that almost seem bigger to me than what I have coming up. In March, I was part of a team that planned a strategic summit for our department's managers and leaders. That went well, so that was great to have done. And then I co-led an association committee whose work is now done. So that's another thing off my plate, which is nice. Looking forward, similar to, I'm just blanking out now whether I think it was Kate, working on best practices and making things consistent. I'm on another team to work on a manual for our department. A fun project I have is actually looking backwards. It's our office's 50th anniversary this year, so I'm pulling together historical materials for a scrapbook, which is a really nice change of pace from some of the other work I do. And then my weak spot as a researcher is corporate and transactional questions. So I'm hoping to continue spending some time on improving in that area.
Oh, excellent. Well, you guys all have some really interesting projects coming up. And I think as a wrap up for our podcast today, I just want to thank you all for joining us to help us with another Women Who Lead podcast for new and emerging women leaders. You've all been great. Your insights and answers to all of our questions have been really, really welcome. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing all your professional journeys with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of ILTA, thank you all for your time. We'll see you next round.